She walked alone on the cold, cracked ground of the abandoned wasteland. Her name was Lyra, and she was not welcome anywhere. Her own people had pushed her away, calling her weak, useless, and a burden. For many nights, she tried to understand what she had done wrong, but no answer came. All she knew was that she was alone, and no one was coming to help her. Lyra belonged to the Varnesh, a proud alien race known for strength and perfect genetic design. But she was born smaller, quieter, and much more emotional than the others. To the Varnesh, emotions were a flaw. To them, she was a mistake. And mistakes were cast out. Every morning, Lyra searched for food among the broken metal scraps left behind after old wars. Her stomach was always empty, but hunger was easier to handle than the feeling inside her chest deep. Sharp sadness that no medicine could cure. Still, she kept walking. One day, while exploring the edge of an old battle site, she heard a strange sound. It was soft, like someone breathing. She hid behind a rock, afraid it might be a Varnesh patrol coming to chase her away again. But what she saw was not Varnesh. It was a human. He sat on the ground, holding a small, glowing device in his hands. His face was dirty, and his clothes looked torn from travel. But his eyes were warm, gentle. They were nothing like the cold eyes of her own people. Lyra watched him from a distance. She had heard stories about humans, wild, unpredictable, emotional creatures that never back down. The Varnesh laughed at humans, but Lyra did not believe those stories fully. Now, seeing one for the first time, she felt something new: curiosity. The human looked around suddenly. "Hello," he said. His voice was soft. Not dangerous. Lyra froze. He stood up slowly, showing he carried no weapon in his hands. "Are you hurt?" he asked, scanning the shadows. "You don't have to hide." Lyra had not heard kindness in a long time. Her heart beat fast. She wanted to run, but her legs refused. Finally, she stepped out. The human's eyes widened slightly, but not in fear. He studied her face, her arms, her faint glowing markings. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "My name is Evan." Lyra swallowed. Her voice felt dry. "Why? Why are you not afraid?" Evan gave a small smile. "Why should I be? You look like you need help, not a fight." No one had ever spoken to her like that. For a moment, she felt her eyes sting. But she blinked quickly. She did not want him to think she was weak. "You should leave," she whispered. "My people. They will not accept you." "Well," Evan said, "your people don't accept you either, right?" The words hit hard, but he did not say them to hurt her. He said them gently, like someone speaking a truth he understood too well. Lyra nodded slowly. "Then maybe," Evan continued, "we can look out for each other." No one had ever offered her anything: not food, not safety, not friendship. Yet this human, a stranger from a distant planet, offered her something she had never experienced before. Refuge. She stared at him, unsure if she should trust him. But deep inside, a tiny spark of hope lit up. Hope she thought she had lost forever. "Okay," she whispered. "I will stay." Evan smiled and handed her a small blanket from his pack. "Then you're safe with me." For the first time in her life, Lyra truly believed it. Lyra followed Evan through the quiet wasteland, keeping a careful distance. She still did not fully trust him, but she trusted him more than anyone she had known before. The air was cold, and the gray sky looked heavy. But for the first time in many days, she did not feel completely alone. Evan walked at a slow pace so she could keep up. "There's an old shelter ahead," he told her, pointing at a distant hill. "It's not much, but it's safe from the wind." Safety? That word felt strange to Lyra. She wasn't sure she remembered what safety felt like. They reached the shelter, a small, half-broken structure made of metal plates. It had once been part of a research station, but now it was quiet and abandoned. Inside, The air was warmer, and the floor was covered with soft sand blown in from outside. Evan set down his pack and began sorting items. Food bars, a water filter, a few heating units. Lyra watched him carefully. "You travel alone?" she asked. "Most of the time," Evan said. "Humans don't come out here often. It's dangerous." Lyra nodded. "It is dangerous for me everywhere." Evan paused and looked at her. "Why did they cast you out?" Lyra lowered her eyes. "Because I was different. They said I felt too much, that I cared too much. To them, that is weakness." Evan shook his head. "Where I come from, caring is not weakness. It's strength." Lyra looked up. His voice carried a warmth she could not explain. She had never met someone who thought emotions were good. To the Varnesh, feelings were flaws. She sat down slowly. "My family. They turned away first," she whispered. "Then the leaders. They said I could not stay." I cried. That made them even angrier. Evan passed her a small food bar. "Here, eat." She hesitated, but took it. The taste was plain, but her empty stomach welcomed it. "You know," Evan said, leaning back against the wall, "humans cry a lot. It doesn't make us less. It just means we're alive." Lyra stared at him. "Your kind is strange." He laughed softly. "So I've been told." For a moment, the shelter felt almost peaceful, but the peace did not last long. A low rumbling shook the ground. Lyra froze. She knew that sound too well, the engines of a Varnesh patrol craft. "They're searching," she said quickly. "Maybe for me. Maybe for you." Evan grabbed his pack and checked his scanner. "They're close. We need to stay quiet." Lyra's heart raced. If the Varnesh found her with a human, it would not let either of them leave alive. The rumbling grew louder, vibrating through the metal walls. Evan turned off every device. The shelter went dark. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Lyra didn't understand why he wanted to protect her. He didn't know her anything. He didn't even know her. And yet he stood in front of her, like a shield, ready to face whatever came. A bright searchlight passed over the shelter, lighting the cracks in the roof. Lyra held her breath. Evan stayed perfectly still. Minutes passed. Finally, the rumbling faded into the distance. Lyra exhaled shakily. "You did not run," she whispered. Evan turned to her. "I told you. You're safe with me." Her chest tightened with an emotion she hadn't felt since childhood. Trust, but she also knew the truth. The Varnesh would return. They would not stop until she was found, and now, because of her, Evan was part of the danger too. The shelter stayed quiet long after the patrol ship disappeared. Lyra sat with her back against the cold metal wall, trying to calm her breathing. Her hands still trembled, and she kept staring at the ceiling as if the Varnesh lights might return at any moment. Evan lit a small heating unit again, bringing soft orange light back into the room. "They're moving east," he said, after checking his scanner. "We should be safe for a while." Lyra nodded, but her mind was not calm. "They will come back," she whispered. "They always come back." Evan sat down across from her. "Then we'll be ready next time." Lyra blinked at him. "Why do you say we? I am the one they want." "And I'm the one who found you," Evan replied, his voice steady. "So we deal with this together." His words confused her. Varnesh never talked like that. Everyone in her species lived for themselves, their own rank, their own strength. No one protected the weak. No one shared burdens. Yet this human weak by Varnesh standards treated her like an equal. Humans are strange. She murmured again. Evan smiled. "Yeah, but sometimes strange is good." That night, A cold wind blew through the cracks of the shelter, making the metal plates shake softly. Lyra curled up under the blanket Evan had given her. She felt warmer than before, but her thoughts kept her awake. Human kindness was dangerous. Dangerous because she liked it. Dangerous because it made her want to stay. And staying meant putting Evan at risk. She turned toward him. He was already asleep, sitting upright with his head leaning against the wall. His breathing was steady, peaceful, almost comforting. Lyra wondered how someone like him survived alone. He looked fragile, but his spirit felt stronger than the strongest Varnesh warrior. Maybe that was the human way. Morning arrived slowly. The sky outside was pale and quiet. Evan stretched and rubbed his eyes. "Morning," he said with a tired smile. Lyra gave a small nod. "Morning." They packed supplies. Evan checked his scanner again. "The patrols are expanding their range. We can't stay here." Lyra's stomach tightened. "Where will we go?" "There's an old human base about 2 days from here," he said. "Half buried under sand, but it still has working shields. We can hide there." Lyra repeated softly. Evan raised an eyebrow. "Are you planning to leave me behind?" She looked away quickly. "No, I didn't mean that." He laughed gently. "Good, because I'm not letting you face this alone." Lyra felt something warm in her chest. She didn't know the human word for it, but it felt like belonging. They left the shelter and began walking across the wide desert. The sun climbed slowly, painting the sand with long shadows. Lyra walked beside Evan, their steps quiet and steady. For hours, they talked small questions at first. "What do humans eat?" Lyra asked. "Almost anything," Evan answered. "But I miss real bread." "What is bread?" He tried to explain. She still didn't understand, but she liked hearing him talk. Then she asked something deeper. "Evan, why did you help me?" "You could have walked away," he thought for a moment. "Because no one deserves to be alone," he said finally. "Not even on a different planet." His words echoed in her head. No one deserves to be alone. She tried to hide her smile, but failed, as the sun began to set. The ground under their feet started to tremble again, lightly at first, then stronger. Lyra stopped walking. "This is not a patrol ship," she said slowly. Evan scanned the horizon. His eyes widened. Out of the dusty air, dark shapes appeared. Not one, not two, an entire Varnesh hunting unit. "They found us," Lyra whispered, fear tightening her throat. Evan stepped in front of her without hesitation. "Get behind me," he said. And this time, Lyra obeyed, not because she was scared, but because she trusted him. The desert wind grew sharper as the Varnesh hunting unit stepped out of the golden dust cloud. Their tall, armored bodies shone under the fading sun, and their glowing eyes fixed on Lyra like she was prey. Evan felt her tense behind him, her breath trembling against his back. There were 6 of them, 6 elite Varnesh hunters, trained to track, capture, or kill without hesitation. Evan whispered, "Don't move." But Lyra felt her legs shaking. They should not be here, this close. They must have tracked my energy trail. Evan's jaw tightened. Then we stop them. Or we escape. One of the hunters walked forward, his armor marked with red stripes, the sign of a commander. He lifted his staff weapon and pointed it at them. "Lyra of the Varnesh," he announced. "You were cast out. You were told to leave our territory. Yet you return, and you bring a human with you." His voice was cold and sharp, like metal scraping metal. "This is your final warning." Lyra stepped out from behind Evan. "Commander Rallick," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "I did not return. I was only trying to survive." "You were not meant to survive," Rallick replied, eyes narrowing. "You were meant to die alone. That is the law." Evan clenched his fists. "That's not a law," he said. "That's cruelty." Rollick turned his gaze to Evan. "Human, leave now, and you may live. Stay, and you will die with her." Evan did not move. He didn't step back. He didn't even blink. "She's not alone anymore," he said. Lyra felt her heart tighten. No one had ever stood up for her before. Rollick raised his hand. "Very well." Hunter's Evan grabbed Lyra's hand. "Run." They sprinted across the sand as the hunters roared behind them. Plasmic shots struck the ground, sending explosions of dust into the air. Lyra's feet burned, but Evan kept pulling her forward. "There's a ravine ahead." She shouted, "To the right." Evan turned sharply, guiding her toward the deep crack in the desert floor. They slid down the sandy slope just as another blast shook the edge above them. Evan leaned against the rocky wall, breathing hard. "Are you okay?" Lyra nodded, though her chest hurt. "They will come down." "They never stop. We'll make them stop," Evan said. He pulled out a small metal device from his pack and pressed a button. The screen lit up with blinking dots. "A map?" Lyra asked. "A distress beacon," Evan corrected. "If I activate it fully, any human ship in orbit will hear us." Lyra's eyes widened. "You called for your people." "Not yet," Evan said. "If I activate it now, the Varnesh will detect it instantly. We need distance first." He looked at her seriously. "But I'm not leaving you. I want help for both of us." Lyra's throat felt tight. No one had ever risked so much for her. Before she could speak, the ground above shook. A Varnesh hunter had jumped into the ravine, landing hard. Cracks spreading under his feet. His glowing eyes locked on them. Lyra stepped forward on instinct. "Stay back." The hunter raised his weapon, but Evan moved first. He grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her aside as the blast hit the rocks. The explosion echoed through the ravine. Evan picked up a sharp piece of broken metal from the ground. It wasn't much, but it was something. Lyra watched him in shock. "You cannot fight him. He is too strong." "Maybe," Evan said, setting his feet. "But I'm not letting him hurt you," the Varnesh hunter charged. Evan didn't run. He met the attack head-on. Lyra felt fear explode inside her, fear, not for herself, but for the human who had shown her more kindness in one day than her entire species had in her whole life. She could not lose. Him, not after everything, not now. With a scream she didn't know she had inside her, she jumped forward. Her glowing markings brightening with a fierce light she had never felt before, and the fight for both their lives truly began. The Varnesh hunter struck with brutal force. His armored arm swung down like a falling hammer, aiming to crush Evan into the sand. Evan barely rolled aside, the impact shaking the entire ravine. Dust burst into the air, filling Lyra's lungs. Evan gripped the sharp metal shard tighter, but his arms shook. He was fast and brave, but he was still only human. The hunter towered over him like a giant. Lyra felt something snap inside her. She stepped between them. "Stop!" she screamed, her voice echoing across the stone walls. The glowing lines on her skin, normally soft and dim-flared like lightning. The hunter hesitated. For a second, confusion flickered across his glowing eyes. "No," he growled. "You are cast out. You have no right to command." Lyra stood tall, even though her hands trembled. "I have the right to live, and the human." The hunter spat. She didn't even look back. "He lives too." The hunter lunged at. Evan tried to pull her back, but she pushed him behind her and raised her hands. She didn't know what she was doing. She had never been taught to fight, but something deep inside her unlocked. A pulse of bright blue energy burst from her palms. The hunter was thrown backward, smashing into the ravine wall. Evan stared at her wide-eyed. Lyra. What was that? Atona, she whispered, shocked at her own strength. I've never done that before. The hunter staggered to his feet, growling in pain. His armor was cracked, but he wasn't defeated. You hide power, he snarled. This is why you were cast out. You are unstable. No, Lyra said, her voice firm. I was cast out because you feared what you didn't understand. The hunter raised his weapon again, but before he could fire, a voice echoed from above. Relic to Unit 7. Report. It was the commander. Lyra's blood ran cold. The hunter looked up. The outcast has unexpected energy abilities. The human interferes. Then you are authorized, Rollick replied, to eliminate both. Evan looked at Lyra. Lyra looked at Evan. There was no more running. The hunter leaped down again, faster this time. Evan tried to dodge, but the hunter grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Human weakness, the hunter hissed, easily broken. Evan gasped for air, his feet kicking helplessly. Let him go. Lyra shouted. The hunter ignored her. His grip tightened. And that's when Lyra felt it: anger, fear, desperation, all mixing into one unstoppable force. Her markings glowed brighter, spreading from her arms to her chest, to her face. The light was no longer soft or accidental. It was power. She stepped forward, her voice shaking with fury. I said, let him go. A massive blast of energy erupted from her body. The hunter was thrown back so violently that he crashed against the ravine wall and fell to the ground, unconscious. Evan collapsed onto his knees, coughing hard. Lyra rushed to him. Are you hurt? He shook his head weakly. I'll live, thanks to you. She helped him up, her hands trembling. I didn't know I could do that. You saved my life, Evan said. Whatever it is, it's not something to fear. But Lyra didn't look convinced. The Varnesh will be terrified of this. They will not stop now. They will hunt us harder. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we stop running. We find your strength. We use it. Lyra swallowed. I don't know how. I'll help you, Evan said. We'll learn together. Before she could respond, the ground above shook again. More Varnesh hunters. They were closing in. Evan activated the beacon. Time to call for help. Lyra looked up at the sky. Fear and hope colliding in her chest. This was no longer just survival. It was the beginning of a war. Evan's distress beacon blinked with a sharp blue light, pulsing faster as the signal shot upward toward the darkening sky. Lyra watched it rise, her heart pounding. The beacon was small, but the hope it carried felt enormous. Evan stepped beside her. If any human ships are nearby, they'll hear this. And if the Varnesh detect it first, Lyra asked quietly. Then we move fast, Evan said. We don't have another choice. Above them, heavy footsteps echoed. More hunters gathering. Their shadows stretched across the ravine walls like giants made of darkness. Lyra's fingers curled tightly at her sides. She could still feel the power inside her, wild, electric, frightening. The last time it surged, she saved Evan. But she had no idea if she could control it again. We need to climb out of here, Evan said, before they surround the top. They started up the steep rock. Evan pushed Lyra upward first, helping her find holds in the stone. She moved quickly, but every sound from above made her flinch. Evan, she whispered, I hear something. Evan climbed faster. Keep going. Don't look back. But she had to look. A hunter appeared at the edge of the ravine, his armor shining in the moonlight. Then another, and another. 6 of them now. Their weapons aimed down at the 2 figures trying to escape. Faster, Evan said urgently. They reached the top just as a shot fired. The sand exploded beside Lyra's foot, showering her with dust. She stumbled, but Evan caught her arm, pulling her behind a large boulder. The hunters fanned out, forming a half circle. There was no path forward, no path backward, only the open desert and death behind the hunters. Evan glanced at Lyra. "Can you use your power again?" She shook her head. "I don't know how. It happened by itself. Try," he said gently. "Just try." Lyra closed her eyes. She tried to feel the energy she had felt before, hot, bright, fierce. But now she felt only fear. The hunters stepped closer. One raised his weapon. Then a sound cut through the air. A distant, powerful hum from the sky. Evan looked up first. "Lyra, look." She lifted her eyes. A ship was descending long, silver, shaped like a spear cutting through night. It glowed with a familiar blue light. "A human rescue ship," Evan whispered. The hunters turned, their formation breaking. The ship drew nearer, loud enough to shake the ground. But Rollick's voice thundered over their comms. "Destroy the beacon, kill the human. Bring the outcast alive." The hunters moved. Evan grabbed Lyra's hand and ran toward a cluster of rocks. Shots fired all around them. The desert erupted with flashes of white light. The rescue ship angled downward, preparing to land, but it was too far. The hunters were too close. A blast struck the rock just above Lyra's head, sending shards flying. Evan shielded her with his body, taking the hit on his arm. He cried out and fell to one knee. "Evan!" Lyra lowered herself beside him. His arm was bleeding, and he was struggling to breathe. "I'm fine," he lied through clenched teeth. "Just don't let them take you." Lyra felt a tear fall, tracing a bright line down her cheek. Another hunter approached. His weapon raised. Lyra stood. Her fear burned away, leaving only one thought. No one takes him. Her body glowed brighter than before, blue lines turning white-hot. The ground beneath her cracked. The hunters paused, suddenly unsure. Evan looked up at her, eyes wide with awe. "Lyra, your energy is getting stronger." The approaching hunter hesitated. "Unnatural power," he muttered. "She must be captured immediately." But Lyra stepped forward. "No," she said. "I won't be captured again." Her markings exploded in brilliant light just as the human rescue ship touched down behind her. Engines roaring. The battlefield was set. This was no longer a chase. It was the turning point asterisk. The human rescue ship landed behind Lyra with a roar that shook the sand. Its bright landing lights cut through the darkness, casting long shadows of both hunters and humans across the desert floor. For a second, everything froze. The Varnesh hunters stared at the ship, their armor reflecting the harsh white glare. Lyra stood between them and the ship, glowing brighter than ever. Evan knelt behind her, clutching his injured arm, but still watching her with fierce determination. The ship doors slid open with a hiss. 3 human soldiers stepped out, armored but calm. Their helmets had glowing visors, and their rifles were steady but not aggressive. One of them shouted, "Identify yourselves." The nearest Varnesh hunter growled, "Stand down, human soldiers. This is Varnesh territory. We are retrieving an escaped outcast and eliminating an unlawful intruder." The human commander stepped forward, voice firm. "This is neutral land. We answer a distress signal. Stand down or we will defend." Lyra realized something important. Humans weren't afraid of the Varnesh. Not even a little. The hunters shifted in frustration, unsure how to proceed. They were used to being feared. They were used to being obeyed. Evan used the moment to pull himself up beside Lyra. "We need to get to the ship," he whispered. Lyra looked at him. "If I leave, they will hunt you next." Evan shook his head. "They're already hunting me." Her heart clenched. He was right. Before either could move, Rollick's voice crackled through the hunter's comms. "Capture the outcast." Do not allow human interference. The hunters charged. The human soldiers reacted instantly. They fired stun pulses, blue bolts zipping through the air. The Varnesh hunters dodged and returned fire with heavier energy weapons. Explosions lit up the desert. Evan pulled Lyra behind a rock, shielding her from a stray blast. "You need to get to that ship," Evan said over the noise. "They can protect you." Lyra shook her head. "Not without you." "Lyra, I can barely walk." "Then I will help you." Another explosion hit nearby, scattering sand. A human soldier dove behind their rock for cover. "You the ones who sent the beacon," he shouted. Double quotes, "Yes," Evan answered. The soldier nodded. "Your girlfriend's glowing like a whole generator. Love the style. But we gotta move." "She's not," Evan started. Lyra interrupted. "He is injured. Help him." The soldier lifted Evan's good arm over his shoulder and pulled him up. "Come on, both of you." To the ship. Lyra followed, but the ground shook violently. A Varnesh hunter landed in front of her, blocking the path. "You glow with unstable power," he snarled. "You are a danger to all. You must be contained." Lyra stepped back, her markings brightening. "I am done being contained." She thrust her hands forward, trying to summon the energy again. A faint spark flickered ... then faded. Nothing, her heart dropped. The hunter raised his weapon. "Your power is uncontrolled. You cannot call it at will." Lyra stumbled backward. No, not now." The hunter aimed at her head. Evan shouted, "Lyra." The soldier yelled, "Move." Lyra squeezed her eyes shut, but instead of a shot, she heard a roar. A blast of blue energy slammed into the hunter from behind, sending him flying. Lyra opened her eyes to see the human ship's forward cannon glowing hot. The ship's pilot shouted from the open door, "Get in." Now, Evan limped toward the ramp with the soldier's help. Lyra ran beside them, but as she reached the ramp, she stopped. She looked back. More hunters were coming. Rollick himself appeared at the ridge, eyes glowing with fury. "Lyra." Evan cried, "Come on." But she didn't move. She stared at Rollick, at the hunters, at the land that once called her worthless. "No," she whispered to herself. "I am not worthless. Not anymore." The ship's engines roared louder. Evan reached his hand out to her. "Lyra, please." Her heart pulled in two directions, toward the human who saved her, and toward the fight she knew was coming. Then, the sand shook under a fresh wave of hunter footsteps. She made her choice. Lyra sprinted up the ramp and grabbed Evan's hand just as the ship doors slammed shut behind them. The ship lifted off to low. The hunters watched in anger, powerless to stop it. But Rollick did not look afraid. He looked furious and determined. "This is not over," he growled. Asterisk.